Good evening, members, and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Audit and Governance Committee on the 28th of January 2026. Members, the chair of this committee this evening is unable to join us, and so therefore, please may I ask for the committee to nominate and second a chair to chair this evening's meeting. So do I have any nominations, please, members?
I'd like to nominate Alan Edwards as chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dearson. Are there, who will second that?
I'd second it.
Thank you, Councillor Bredding. Members, can you please confirm that you are in agreement, or if you're in favour? Agreed. Thank you. That's unanimous. Councillor Edwards, if you'd like to join us. Thank you.
Thank you, committee. Good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Audit and Governance Committee. This meeting, as ever, is being live streamed. If there are technical difficulties, we will upload it as soon as possible after it concludes and make it available for viewing the next day. So item 1 is apologies for absence. We have received apologies from Councillor Brooke, Councillor Harbison, Councillor Harvey and Councillor Wimbledon, and Councillor Silk is attending as the substitute for Councillor Wimbledon. Our independent person, Paula Mills, has also sent her apologies. Are there any other apologies? None? Okay. Thank you. Members, item 2. Do we have any declarations of interest? None. Thank you very much. So item 3, are the minutes of the meeting which was held on the 26th of November 2025 agreed? Thank you. That's a pencil. Thank you. Thank you. Agenda item 4 is the Treasury management update for the third quarter. Ms Cox, can you please introduce the report to us?
Thank you, Chair. So this report shows our investment and borrowing position as at the end of quarter 3. We are in line with our prudential indicators that were set out in the strategy that was set in February. The key things to note in this quarter is that the Bank of England interest rate reduced in December. So moving forwards, we'll likely see a drop in our returns, but that was factored into the budgets based on interest forecast from our Treasury advisors. Money markets retain their interest rate at a better rate than other investments, therefore we're in a good position with our portfolio. Our interest receivable is still on track for the revised forecast that we've previously reported. Within the period, our borrowing has decreased by 450,000, which is due to a planned repayment of our general fund loan. And we had 2 investments with local authorities that matured within the period, and those set funds have then been reinvested with money markets. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Dearson.
Just one question and one point to make. I see that in 6.3 we earned 1.144 million at 31st December, which is 449,000 above the original estimate. So I just wanted to congratulate the team on the fact that our investments are better than previously indicated. On 7.1 benchmark, we've got 2 fixed-term investments which were AA minus that matured, and now we've reinvested them as liquid money market funds, which are AAA rated, which is great news because I wasn't aware previously we had anything that was AAA rated. Maybe that's my bad. And was that credit rating a decision by our Treasury management team or in conjunction with a conversation with Mitsubishi UFJ? Oh, sorry, and lastly, who are we put those AAA funds with?
So the AAAs are determined by Moody's and Fitch, who are the sort of overarching bodies that decide on those. We get updated by our Treasury advisors as to what the current ratings are and if there are any changes. The money markets are, they're kind of a, they've always been a AAA rating. There's been no change to that. They have always been of that nature. Did that answer everything? Well, so the money markets are, we have, unless you could think who they are off the top, there's several that we use. We use Aberdeen, we use Deutsche. So it's a money market fund. So in terms of individual bodies, they kind of then invest it within their pool.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. Thank you very much.
Councillor Bredding.
Thank you. Right. Whilst the report shows some very careful financial management and investments, do you have any concerns about the viability of the investments, given the fact that we all agree that at the moment interest rates and the economy is very volatile? Is there any specific concerns that we may have?
No, in fact, we've had a meeting with our Treasury advisor who's praised us on our portfolio because of how we're sort of returning on it. Money market funds are considered sort of one of the best options for returns. So, yeah, we have no concerns.
Councillors, are there any other questions on this item? No. Okay. Members, in that case, I move the recommendation set out in paragraph 3.1 of the report. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Dearson, thank you. Members, is that agreed? Thank you very much. Okay, members, item 5, you should note that there was an addendum to this report that's been published and circulated. Can you confirm that you've had time to read that? This was with the latest updates for the forthcoming budget. Well, we can take a brief pause if some time is needed to read it fully. Okay, thank you all. Ms Cox, given that we're now aware of the contents, can you please introduce the report?
Thank you, Chairman. So this strategy sets out the proposed prudential indicators for 2026 to 27 and our investment and treasury strategies. This is largely driven by the proposed capital programme and the intended funding of that programme. The indicators are a way for us to test and monitor the affordability of the programme and are in line with the SIPFA Prudential Code and the Treasury Code of Practice. When we take out borrowing, the affordability consideration is around interest and the repayment of those loans, which is factored into the budget book. With regards to the investment strategy, there is no change in that from previous years, in line with how much we can invest with which bodies and for how long. And yes, so there's no further changes. So if there's any questions.
Members, do you have any questions? Councillor Dearson.
Sorry, yeah. I know that it says in the report, or update 36, that the Mitsubishi UFG Financial Group give technical support, capital funding, insurance, etc. But it says the final decision on all Treasury matters remains with the Council. Do we have any instances where we've overruled any advice given by them, or do we go with the advice from them?
Yeah, no, we've never gone against them. It would have to be sort of a severe situation.
Sorry, I've just got 3 questions. The next one is, it says members receive training on a periodic basis. I wonder what that periodic period is. Is that yearly, quarterly, or?
Yeah, so some has been held previously and we'll be looking at to rearrange some for this year.
Maybe if we could just have an update at a future meeting on that training periodic programme and where we're going to be with that. And then the final question is, on number 19, it says Markets in Financial Instruments Directive, the MiFID, opted opted us to move to professional status because we have a good understanding of financial products, which is fantastic, by the way. But it does say that because of this, we do not have the same protection as we would have had as retail. Do we have any concerns over what that protection means or the loss of that protection by moving up to professional status? I'm just trying to understand what's the difference between retail, professional, and the loss of that protection.
So the change in protection has been, that's the MiFID has been in for a number of years. We've not had any issues or any concerns in that time. So yeah, there's no concerns or worries with that.
Councillor Redding.
Thank you. Going through the strategy, there's quite a lot of delegation, obviously, to the 151 officers. So therefore, I'd just like to ask a general question. Do we have any sort of financial management policy that sets levels of delegation throughout the council, or is it just an agreement?
Can I ask Ms Hutchins to take that one, please?
Councillor Bredding, that is the Constitution and the financial regulations within the Constitution.
Members, are there any additional questions on this item? Okay, thank you. In that case, members, I need a proposer I propose, sorry, that we move the recommendation that's set out in 3.1 of this report. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Bredding. And is that agreed, members? Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to item 6, which is our internal audit quarterly progress report. Mr. Barnes, could you introduce the report for us, please?
Thank you, Chair. So this is our regular report to the committee outlining the progress in delivering the audit plan that the committee agreed to last year, and that will provide assurance to the committee about the effectiveness of the council's arrangements and provide assurance about the annual governance statement that will be drafted in respect of this year in the springtime. Appendix 1 provides a status update on each of the pieces of work in the plan, but we do keep the plan under review in accordance with any sort of changes or issues that arise within the council and challenges that have been faced. And in this period, we've added a piece of work on the project management of the new housing management system. As set out at section 5, our previously disappointing level of sickness absence has much improved with the changes to the staffing in the team. And so as a result, there's been a much reduced level of sickness absence so far this financial year. The audit work is progressing, and at this stage we've got about 40% of the planned audits completed, 32% of the planned audits are underway, and I'm working with the audit manager, the team, the contractors that we work with, and colleagues at the council to get those completed and all of the reports finalised. There is a proportion that's not yet due to start, and resources are in place to deliver that work in time to inform my Head of Internal Audit annual report for the year for the July meeting. It would be nice to have fully finalised more of the work at this point, and we're a bit further behind than I would like, but we continue to work towards delivery of our annual report in July. As I previously discussed with the committee, we do find it tough to find suitable staff for the team, and I can report there's been no further changes to the staffing since the last meeting. As requested at the last meeting, I've updated the risk implications section of the report to include some of the key mitigating actions that we and I are taking to avoid those risks from crystallising. And finally, 2 more audits have been completed since we last met in November, with the housing fire safety and the landlord health and safety follow-up audits providing satisfactory and high assurance respectively, and the summaries of that work is shown for you at Appendix 2. Other fully completed work will be reported to subsequent meetings of the committee in accordance with the work plan schedule. That's all I wanted to say, Chair, but try to answer any questions members may have.
Thank you very much. And members, we're joined by the leads for the relevant teams that have got actions relating from audits. So is that the next item? Apologies, I'm misinforming you, but we are joined by the leads of all the actions. So members, if you have any questions. Councillor Dearson.
Thank you. Just a few questions. Under the advice support, Chair. We have 6 items in December, now 7 items. They're all low-risk items, but we've got specified contractors working with the teams in respect of advice and etc. as needed. But I just want to ask a question, is that the best use of resources when we have high-risk items that are yet to start and not going to start until Q4? I just have concerns. We have 2 high-risk items not yet started. We have some low-risk items that are all... so we've got a number of low-risk items, quite a few actually, and then a load of medium-risk items. We've only got 3 high-risk items, and of those, 2 are not going to start till Q4. So it's a bit of a concern. I'm just trying to understand why.
Can I answer
Mr
that
Barnes,
question,
if you
Chair?
can take that one.
So the fraud risk column is about the potential risk of fraud in that particular area of activity. It's not a risk of the subject matter inherently. It's about whether there's scope for or likelihood of fraud, opportunity for fraud to be taking place in that area. So it's not that these are low risk items. They're all actually very significant items for the council itself. But in those particular areas, we don't think the risk of fraud in respect of those particular items is high, which is why they've got a low fraud risk rating. The 2 items that you've mentioned, I need to be directed to what they actually are, but they're not necessarily higher risk than the advice and support items. They're just there's a more risk of fraud in those particular items, not the risk of the actual item itself.
Sorry, the 2 items in question are contract management and procurement, in which we're waiting for specialised contracts. And I believe they're sort of designated now, but the work's not to Q4. So it's just difficult for me to understand that from a fraud risk perspective, you'll put them as high risk, yet other things are low risk, but we've already started them. So it just doesn't sit very well for me. That it's either we need to look at the risk ratings and have some other definitions in there, or so they're high risk for fraud is the column says fraud risk and they're high, yet we've not started them, but there are others that are fraud risk that are low and we've started them.
So
am I being a bit thick, or
no? You're not being thick, Councillor. It's just it's a miscommunication, I guess, between us. It's about the topical area. So I think you said recruitment and contract management. Obviously, in contract management in particular, there's a higher risk of fraud than there is in other activities within the council. But our scheduling and work programme isn't focused solely on the delivery of assurance over fraud risk. It's about significance of the particular items to the council, and I schedule it based on when it's going to work with the teams, the colleagues in the council, in terms of when it's going to be a suitable time in the annual cycle to actually deliver that work. There are lots of factors that go into the actual scheduling. The fraud risk is there really just to provide an indication to you as to whether that particular topic there's a potential for fraud, and whether that risk we consider that risk to be in heightened or lower. It's not meant to be a driver for the sequencing of the audit work. That's my intention for it anyway. So if you're reading that differently, then maybe I need to change the way I present that. But that's what it's there to show you.
Perhaps, Chair, if I may add to that. But in both of these cases, the procurement and contract management audits were completed previously, and these are both follow-ups to ensure that the actions have been carried out and embedded. So if that helps give some further reassurance to the committee that audits have been completed previously. As for the timing of these as well, we have to allow the sufficient time for those actions to have been implemented. Had we have done it much sooner and earlier in the year, it wouldn't have given enough time frame between the initial audit being completed and then the follow-up to being done either.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And Andrew, you and I can chat offline on this, or when we get together before the next audit meeting. So I'm not overly concerned, but I just want to.
Councillor Breddy.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry, I'm going to come in on the contract management one at the moment, because there is a crossover between that and item 7, where you've done a much broader picture of contract management. So if we take the whole lot together, because to give us a proper overview of where we are, what concerns me on there is the fact that although we've progressed with 12 of the 17 recommendations that Audit came up with. We still have 4 of the remaining 5 which are underway. 1 has not even been started. Now, looking at this and looking at the history on the paperwork, this item was due in December 24, so it's well over a year overdue. And I just wondered, really, if it's down for Q4, is it going to be nearly 2 years out? Can I have
Can I just ask you to, for people not in the room, if you can just clarify what item we're referring to? Yeah, thank you.
So I think that question is substantially in the next actual agenda item. In terms of the timing of that, it's been scheduled because of the contractor that we're using to do that piece of work. And as you've highlighted, the recommendations haven't been fully implemented as yet. So doing that follow-up work in advance of that is only going to tell management and you what you already know, in that those recommendations haven't been implemented. So I think it's the timing of it needs to take place once management do consider they've been implemented, and then we can come and test that and then give you assurance that the representations management are making to you are accurate.
If I can just follow up on that then. So the audit was done in 24. We're now clear of 25. So are there particular aspects that have prevented implementation of those recommendations in that time?
Yes, I can answer that one, Chair. So unfortunately, with regards to contract management, we've had some difficulties recruiting additional resource to help us with our contract management. We did interview some candidates and offered, and unfortunately the candidate we wished to offer to declined the offer. We've gone back out to advert for that role. I'll need to double check exactly where it's at, but I'd expect that we'll be holding interviews imminently to help being able to progress those actions.
Thank you. I have been reminded that I've just stepped over our next agenda item, so please excuse me. Councillor Redding.
Moving back onto the internal audit report, on page 2, paragraph 7.2, we talk about the main risks to the audit team, and one of them is the lack of management capacity to support and process the work timely. Now, given that, are you confident that the external suppliers are being monitored and quality assured because of the lack of the audit manager that you mentioned in your report?
Thank you. Yes, so in respect of that, I can give you assurance over that. I am confident about that. We hold fortnightly meetings with both of our external suppliers to monitor the progress and the delivery of the work, get feedback on what they're finding, and the engagement they've had with colleagues in the council. And then both the audit manager and myself then quality assure the actual reports as they come in. And part of the reason for the backlog of the work is that they're actually producing things quite quickly, and myself and the audit manager are struggling to keep up a little bit. So because we've got there's a lot of work for us to get through. So in terms of your actual concern about that, then I'm confident that we will get to the right results from these pieces of work by the time we get to the conclusions of them.
Thank you. And may I ask one more question?
Go ahead.
All right. On page 5, complaints, it was minuted in November that we had hoped that this work would be completed. Can we have an assurance that progress is being made? And when do we expect the item to be completed? Because complaints has been brought forward a number of times.
So I think hopefully that if you look back to the previous papers, it has moved forward slightly. The audit work is now complete, and we've got meetings scheduled with management to confirm the findings in the report. So that report is in hand and being drafted. Not right now, but is not this minute, but is in train as we speak. The auditor is preparing that report currently. That will then go to management, or to me initially, to review and provide any comments and feedback I've got. Then it will come into management for same to have their review, and any comments and feedback they've got, and then once it's all been agreed by everyone, it will come to yourselves.
Thank you. Councillor Dearson.
Sorry, Andrew, just a couple more questions. I know I talked about the two higher, the contract management and procurement, but there are Treasury management and the GL are there, two high risk items which are there to be, I think it's the action points are there to be reviewed in Q4. And I understand that we've got to give the teams time to work on those action points. But those in November of 25, there were 9 action items for each, for Treasury Manager and for the GL, and none of them have been started in November 25. So what assurance can you give me that if none of them have been started...
Councillor Dearson, can we handle this under item 7, which is the management actions and implementation update?
We can do if you wish.
Treading
one
on
of
our...
them's not even mentioned there, but anyway, we can, yeah, okay.
Well, if there's one that's missed from item 7, then by all means bring it forward now.
Then just the other point on Treasury Management and GL, there's no risk rating on the report for that?
Yeah, apologies to the whole committee. That's my drafting error. Yeah.
And just a couple more things. On the, I know that you're going to go through them, and you've done a detailed part of the next item, but previously we've had the IdeaGen report showing how many items and where they are and what haven't been started. Would it be possible to have that again for the next audit meeting?
I think it would have to come in accordance with the work schedule. I think the next audit meeting is a very specific meeting.
Right, well, okay.
So I'm not sure it'd be right for the next meeting, but a subsequent meeting to that.
So 28th of November, that's specific.
I think the table that you're referring to is Appendix 1 to Item 7, but
right, okay, I'll have
unless
a
you're
look
looking for something different.
Okay.
Sorry, Councillor.
And we said that we've got, the sickness has improved, but I know that we're probably still outsourcing 25% of our work, same as last year, to contractors. Have we got any view as to when we think, I know it's a sort of across all councils that trying to recruit staff is difficult, but any thoughts on when we may be able to get to a better state of?
So we've got, we're kind of trying to invest in sort of young people and building from the bottom. So we've got an apprentice who's in the second year of her apprenticeship at the moment. She'll finish that in September, and then I'm she'll want to apply for one of our vacancies, and that will fill one of the vacancies, and then we'd look to get a new apprentice in place to start that process again, to start training up a new young person. So we're building from the bottom. It is going to take time. There isn't a lot of people out there, unfortunately, at the moment, but we are doing our best.
One more question on the back of that. Is there any ability to lock these people in once they've finished their apprenticeships? Or because in previous jobs I've had, you spend time training them up and then they just move on somewhere else for more money. So is there any way of locking these staff in, having put them through their apprenticeships, or is it just a risk we take?
It depends on the contract arrangements with the individual involved. So in the past we have done that, where we've actually paid for people's training and then not locking them in per se, but if they do leave within a certain amount of time, they have to pay back a proportion of their training costs, and that diminishes over a period of years. I think with the current situation, because of the apprenticeship levy, we don't actually pay the cost of the training anymore. We just employ the person and pay their salaries, and the actual cost of the training is met from the apprenticeship levy. So we haven't got that situation in place with this particular person who's on a fixed term contract that will expire at the end of her apprenticeship, because that was the nature of the relationship the South End Council was prepared to put in place with her. But because of the vacancies we've got, there are opportunities for her to progress into roles within the council should she want to. I can't make her do that, obviously. She's indicated she's keen to. So we have done that in the past. We're not doing that currently.
Councillor Bredding.
Finally, on item 6, on Appendix 2, on your audits revisited, under the landlord's health and safety, on page 16 of the report, you make a note that the gas policy is missing governance information and would benefit from an update to include the governance information. Has that recommendation been taken on board?
I'd need to check back to the detail of that, Councillor Bredding, sorry. In respect of the information in front of us, I can't see that directly.
Okay, we'll take that as a note. Our independent person, Paula Mills, is not available tonight, but she has gone through all of the materials for the meeting and provided us with a couple of questions on this item. So she notes it's pleasing to see the progress made on the fire safety and landlord health and safety, but asks, in terms of the draft reports that are being prepared and discussed, there appear to be quite a few, so can we expect an influx of reports in the next progress report?
So yeah, that's for the reasons I explained earlier, Chair, that's what's causing the delay. So over the next couple of meetings, yes, there will be an influx of reports coming to you.
Thanks for confirming that. And for those that are being drafted and discussed with service management, are there any concerns that you think we need to be aware of or put on notice of when we're considering the work plan for any expected inadequate opinions?
There aren't any that are proposed as a minimal assurance level, so I think they're all in a reasonable state. I think there's recommendations coming forward in all of them, but I think that's fairly normal. There's nothing that strikes me as being of major concern that we need to really kind of accelerate through the process.
Thank you, that's reassuring to hear. Okay, members, are there any further questions? Okay, members, can we note this report as received? Thank you very much. So that brings us to agenda item 7, our internal audit recommendations and the agreed management actions on implementation. Mr. Barnes, could you introduce this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. So as requested by the committee, we're bringing a further report on the implementation of audit recommendations. And in this round, we've provided further detail about those recommendations that are currently beyond their agreed implementation date. To facilitate this report, management have been asked to update the current position on the recommendations within the IdeaGen system. And from the information recorded on the system, we've been able to prepare the status update captured in the report at paragraphs 5 to 12 for the specific audits with recommendations beyond the agreed implementation date. And we've distilled all that information into the summary that's at Appendix 1 for those items that remain in accordance with the agreed implementation date. The report does show that progress has been made on the implementation of by far the majority of recommendations, although I would say there remains more work to do in the areas of business continuity, contract management and rent collection and arrears management. We'll continue to bring this report to the committee periodically so that over time the committee can track delivery and be assured that the council is delivering the actions in response to recommendations that have been agreed. That's all I really want to say, Chair, but myself and colleagues will be happy to try to answer any questions that members may have.
Thank you very much. Members, what questions do we have? Councillor Redding.
Thank you for that. Right, going through on the business continuity, and as you say, there are quite a lot of work still to be done on that, and progress has not been as quickly going through as we'd hoped. Can we have any idea of when we can expect to see some progress on this going forward?
Through you, Chair. Business continuity falls within my area of responsibility, so I can answer that. The difficulty that we've had with business continuity isn't with business continuity itself, it's that we've got one person who looks after both emergency planning and business continuity. When he started at the council a little over a year ago, he essentially started from scratch. We found that the existing paperwork perhaps wasn't in the state we would have desired. The natural focus has been on emergency planning because that is where the biggest impact could be had on the operation of the council and our statutory duties along with our residents. Now that most of the work on emergency planning has been completed, he has turned his attention to business continuity, and there's already great progress being made in addressing the audit actions. There is a degree of sequencing that has to happen because there's certain documentations at a more strategic level within business continuity that need to be in place prior to the more detailed service level actions being there and then tested. To get to the nub of the issue in question, we would expect this to be completed certainly over the next 6 months, hopefully sooner.
Thank you, Lance. Councillor
May I
Brennan.
ask another one? Okay. The business impact analysis that is on page 2, 5.5, you talk about the findings. Sorry, I'm just trying to find where I am now. Given the dates that you've listed for the business impact analysis and the guidance, can we have an update, please?
Yes. So business impact assessments were completed for most areas. We're taking that information on board now. It has led to some refinement in some of the other documentations, and when we start assessing things such as our critical council services. So that work is ongoing. There was a discussion at the Emergency Planning Business Continuity Board last week, I think it was, in order to make sure that that's progressing to plan.
Members, do we have any additional questions? Councillor Dearson.
So thanks, Andrew, because the hydrogen bits at the bottom, I'm sorry I didn't key down previously to that level. First, I just want to congratulate the fact that we had quite a number previously of items not yet started, but that seems to have drastically reduced, which I think is great news for all the teams that we have so few that yet started. I think the only one is that the GL has 9 items that as November 25 were yet to be started. Firstly, Treasury Management, I want to congratulate them because in November they had 9 items and none of them started, and now they've got 8 of them completed, and one of them, I know in your update above, I think R7 work is in progress, so that's great news. On the GL one, though, there's 9 items that are yet to be started, and I can't see that they're showing at the bottom as what the progress is on those 9 items, and it's not mentioned, I don't think, above any of those 9 items. So have any of those 9 items been started? Where are we on those? If you could give me an update, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, that's an error on my part, I'm afraid, Councillor Dearson. So we had a slight communication issue in respect of the reporting of that report because Carrie joined the organisation after we started that audit, so she wasn't included on the distribution list for the final report, for that final report. So I have engaged with her as part of this process in terms of delivery of those particular recommendations, and because she didn't have sight of them until quite late, she's agreed that, and with me, that they'll be delivered by the end of March 26 this year.
An update at the...
So they'll feed into the process and you'll get a review next time, yes.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Bredin.
I want to go back, if I can, to the main body of the report, page 7. Under 7.5, you've got R13, undertake a lessons learned exercise to understand why the new build contracts have exceeded 5% of the contract sum. I was quite interested in this to find out what is happening to try to mitigate this happening again. So could you tell me what progress is being made on the approach that you've listed?
I'll cover this one for you. So there is, that paragraph 7.5 is the revised approach. So that outlines the various activities that are being undertaken. Just for absolute clarity, this is about the new build contracts for our social housing schemes. As well as the actions taken there, obviously we've just had in December some schemes completed, and there will be the review undertaken. We've got a new resource in the council within the estates team who is undertaking the sort of the checks and looking into the details, making sure that the contract sum is where it was expected to be, largely in line following this process as well.
Sorry, if I may. How often is this going to be monitored and reviewed?
It will be undertaken on each contract.
If I can just ask a follow-up. I mean, what I inferred from this as the problem that we're now tackling is that we seem to have had post-agreement changes in the specification, etc. Is that the sort of problem that we're we're tackling that we didn't really define the project up front, or am I over-inferring?
I'll defer to Mr. Butt to answer that one, if that's okay, Chair.
Mr. Butt?
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, when we sign contracts with contractors, it's not uncommon for there to be changes to those as the work progresses, and that's all written into the contract. This particular issue has been that we've overspent by over 5% on previous contracts, and as Mr. Wasco has pointed out, we are carrying out that checks at the present moment in time, but we do have resources in place that constantly monitor it on a weekly basis, and there's very regular contractor meetings, formal contractor meetings where everything's minuted. If the contractor does have to make changes, then approval is required from the council to do those, and obviously if it does exceed the budget, then there are budget decisions that also need to be taken. We also build into contracts a contingency, and there's also a contractor's contingency built into it as well. So there is some allowance, but that's all built into the overall budget.
So it wasn't a case that we changed the specification, it's more that the contract necessarily changed as we went, and obviously the upward price pressure that we've seen consistently across the construction sector.
I can't answer the specific instances, but the best practice is that once you've let a contract, as the client letting that contract, it is not advisable for the client to make changes. That's not always the case. Circumstances dictate that you might have to changes in regulations, for example, or certain circumstances, but you keep those to an absolute minimum. And when it comes to housing in particular, you know, you are building to a very specific type of plans. You normally have some changes, for example, if it's a bespoke design, if it's something different, and there may be, as I say, changes in legislation or changes in rules or changes in the requirements from the client as things progress that do often cause those client changes. But best practice is to keep it to an absolute minimum.
Changes are expensive. Thank you very much. Councillor Learson, did you have another question? No. Okay, Councillor Redding.
Right, and so this will be my final question on this. On your Appendix 1, again, we've got a number of items there that have overrun their latest due date. And to be fair, some of them, as I said, contract management by year and business continuity, which you've explained the reasons for. Perhaps it would be worthwhile, rather than just keep going back over the same questions at every meeting, to have another column there that says revised due date, so that instead of it looking, we've got the original due date, we've asked why, but you know, if we know when it's due now rather than when it was due, it would give us a clearer picture of what's going on.
I can incorporate that into the report for the members like that. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. If I can just go back into Appendix 1 here on, there's not a page number, but the rent collection and arrears management, we've got a few beyond due date items on there. But I mean, particularly as that's rent collection and arrears, is there any impact on that to the housing, significant impact on that to the housing revenue account, or is it mainly more process than actual impact?
So naturally there is, yeah, it is process. It's about evidencing the way things are done and how we do it and making sure that's following best practice. Obviously, inevitably, if process isn't in line with best practice, that could have an impact. It doesn't say it will have an impact, but it could have an impact.
Okay, but there's not any significant risks there that we're identifying to being able to make collections, etc.
No, so obviously the team have had all their training since, it's only been with me since October. Previously it sat within housing. So since it's been with me, the team have all had thorough training to ensure that they're all following the correct processes and following best practice. We're expecting this to have a very positive impact, but there's no risks I'm concerned of.
Thanks very much. Councillor Bredding, did you have any more? No? Okay, thanks, members. Again, I have a few questions from our independent member, Paula Mills. She said she's noted that she's pleased that there were no internal audit recommendations rejected, and that the whole management team have accepted recommendations made, and is pleased to note that management have provided updates against all of the recommendations on the system, and there are now no updates outstanding, and commends the amount of work that must have gone on behind the scenes to get to that point. So one of her questions has already been answered, but the remaining one is: are there any significant areas of concern relating to these or delays that you wish to highlight to the committee as something that we should pay particular attention to?
Thank you, Chair. Not massively from my perspective. I think obviously we think they're all things that the council should be doing, which is why we made the recommendations in the first place. But although there's been some delays, management is generally engaging with those and progressing with them. I think the commentary in the report kind of speaks to that, and the strides that have been taken to implement the recommendations. In a number of cases, it's kind of timing issues rather than lack of progress. It's just like they haven't quite hit the date, but they've made progress towards delivering the actual recommendation itself. So no, there's nothing of great significance that I would want to highlight.
Thank you. And if I can just add a question myself to across the board. We've seen various councils talking about the stress that they're under and capacity issues due to LGR. Is there anything that we need to note here of the impact of those changes to what, the progress we're making, and also the future plans for audit?
So obviously, yes, LGR is a significant challenge to all the organisations that are involved in it. When we bring our audit plan to you for next year, I think you'll see a significant sort of proportion of the time will be allocated towards supporting the council and giving assurance over strides the council's making to prepare for LGR. I think obviously we don't yet know what configuration the government's going to select, and the different options that are on the table, there will be, in my opinion, there'll be big variations in the degree of the extent of work that might arise from different options that might be selected. So once we know that conclusion from the government, I think that will help to crystallise or form more coherently the risks and the challenges that are going to be faced as the council moves to implement that decision.
Thank you very much. Members, if you've got no further questions, can we note this report as received? Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to the final item, which is our work plan. Members, the work plan has been circulated. There is an additional meeting scheduled for the 25th of February where we'll have our external auditors in attendance. Unless there are any questions, can I ask you to note the work plan? Councillor Reddy.
Yes, I just have one note. On page 7, under financial reporting, it says to review and approve the annual statement of accounts. Is that the report you're talking about coming to February? Because it's got down it should be coming in January.
I believe that is the case. Is there a... Yeah?
Yes, I can confirm that is the case. The reason for the delay is because the audit work has still been undertaken by our external auditors.
Members, are there any other questions on that? Okay, can we note the work plan in that case? Okay, thank you. Members, that was our last item of business. So that having concluded the business, this meeting is closed at 19:49. Thank you very much.